The Roman Catholic world pretty much accepts this as a real so-called miracle, a real apparition. And if you believe the religion, okay, we're not talking about whether the popes are liberal or conservative, but we'll set that aside. I mean, if you believe this religion, why would any pope not just do the consecration? I mean, if every normie trad and every normie Catholic is perceptive enough to know what the requirement is, then why didn't the Pope just do it? Now, if he did it, then why is the whole Catholic world still, well, one day the Holy Father is going to consecrate Russia, and then she'll be converted to law, right? Is it this hard? I mean, do Catholics think that like this, that the devil is like standing there waiting for the Pope to do it, and he will immediately strike the Pope dead for? I mean, it's all silly. It's ridiculous. And
Okay. It's a bit of humour there. And it's fair enough from an outsider's perspective, but he's not entirely an outsider, old Jay. And I think he's again misrepresenting. First he got a so-called miracle, I think. Well, I tell you, it's one of the best attested miracles in the world. Ever. You had 70 to 100,000 people at the place at Fatima, Portugal, so called actually after an Islamic princess who a Catholic prince fell in love with, and her father, a Muslim prince, agreed that she could marry him, and she converted to the Catholic faith, and but she died young, unfortunately, and he gave up the royal life and went into a monastery. He was so distraught. So that's Fatima anyway. That's and the place nearby got called Fatima. But this is a real miracle that took place. There are photographs. People don't say they're doctored. In fact, there's a guy called Joe Nickel who's whether he's live now I don't know, but he's written all kinds of criticisms of claimed miracles. He says at Fatima something happened. We don't know what. Of course, he doesn't believe it was the Blessed Virgin appearing, but something happened. What he's talking about is October the 13th, the last apparition, October 13th, 1917, where the sun was seen to move out of position and zigzag towards the earth, shedding an entirety of rainbow colours upon the assembled people, drying their soaking wet clothes because it's been raining all day. If you don't believe this, know this, that the deputy editor of an anti-Catholic magazine, because Portugal was governed by anti-Catholic Freemasons at this point. It was a catastrophe for the church in Portugal. And the deputy editor of O Secular, he was there. He converted to the Catholic faith. He wasn't the only hostile person who converted to the Catholic faith. So definitely something happened, as Joe Nichols said. Some have said, what's his name? Yes, a famous, well, I don't know how famous he is for you, but he's famous to me. His name's L.A. Marzulli. He's a born-again Christian, and he's very kind of like energetic, goes around looking for evidence of giants having lived in the past. And that's another interesting thing to go into, but I'll just leave it alone for now. Looking at your Bible, Genesis 6, all right, and other passages, particularly in Baruch, I think, which the Protestants don't have in their Bible, yet the mention of giants a few times. I'll stay off it, don't worry, I'll stay off it, I won't digress. We have L.A. Marzulli talking about, this seemed to be aliens. It was, they interpreted it as the Mother of God. Well, he didn't say Mother of God, he's a Protestant. They interpreted it as Mary. No, they interpreted it as the sun spinning, but actually it was a flying saucer. Well, I think people know the sun when they see it. And how could a flying saucer dry their clothes? But anyway, the key point is, Jay saying this supposed miracle, this was real. This was real. I've got a book of eyewitness accounts of this. But you look at the photographs, and the conversions of non-believers. They'd gone there to poo-poo the event because it was a promised miracle. And get this, spaceship my eye, the children were told months before this date of 13th of October 1917 that a miracle will take place on that date. So if that's the case, this couldn't be something other than the person who told them the miracle would take place. If it was like the kids having an hallucination or the people having an hallucination, that'd be very strange for a mass hallucination of that sort. And your clothes can't dry for a mass hallucination. And atheists are against the hallucination. They're not open to this. Anyhow, the next point Jay makes is that his main point in that segment was, well, why don't they just do this consecration? What's the matter with them? Well, think about this. During the Cold War, there were real concerns about getting under the skin of the Soviets. We had lots of Catholics behind the Iron Curtain. And if you start winding up the Soviet government, they could be executed, they could be tortured. I mean, Bolshevism was evil. And Stalin was the kingpin until 1953. So anything you do before 1953 is going to result in executions, torture, exile, heaven knows what, because that's the way he was. And Khrushchev was a little bit better, but still there would be trouble. There are plenty of reasons not to name Russia or not to do the full consecration. Look at Red China now. These guys demolish churches. They're constantly persecuting the priesthood. And they're modern communists. So I really think Jay's been a little bit politically naive here. Then there's something else. There was not universal acceptance of Fatima in the Vatican. There were forces amongst the Jesuits who were very much not on board with these apparitions. And they also sought to undermine any effort at consecrating Russia. And they could point to the kind of things I pointed to. It's not opportune. Russia was a nuclear power from about 1949, I think. So, and major tensions were in the air right until 1989, when the Eastern nations broke away from the Soviet Union. First Hungary, I think. So you see, it's not as straightforward as it may seem to us in 2024.